The first time Maribel Hayes walked into the dusty post office of Cottonwood Ridge, the entire town seemed to pause mid-breath, as if a storm had stepped through the door wearing a blue cotton dress. She was thin, sunburned, and trembling slightly, but her eyes held a fire that refused to bow. She asked in a soft voice if anyone had seen her little brother Daniel. Most people barely looked up. A few whispered. One old man muttered, another drifter telling stories. But Maribel didn't know any of that. All she knew was that her brother had vanished 3 weeks earlier while riding past the ranches outside town, and she had walked 40 miles to find him. That day, she became the center of a story she never wanted to tell, a story the town would soon call a lie. Cottonwood Ridge was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody, or at least believed they did. It was a ranching town nestled between rolling plains and red rock hills, where secrets were buried deep beneath generations of pride. At the center of it all stood Cole Whitaker's ranch, stretching wider than anyone could remember. Cole was a quiet man, broad-shouldered and steady, with eyes that looked like they'd seen too many winters. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't warm either. Folks respected him because he never cheated, never lied, and never spoke unless he had something worth saying. When Maribel claimed that her brother had last been seen riding near Cole's land, heads turned. Accusations began to float like dust in the afternoon air. Cole said nothing. Maribel stayed in a small boarding house, paying with what little money she had and doing chores to cover the rest. Every morning she went door to door, holding up Daniel's worn photograph. He had a crooked smile and hair too wild for any comb to tame. "Please," she would say, "have you seen him?" People avoided her eyes. Some shook their heads. Some told her kindly that she must be mistaken. Others were not so kind. "Girl, you're stirring trouble," a woman snapped. Cole Whitaker's not the kind of man who'd hurt a child. But Maribel wasn't accusing anyone of hurting Daniel, she just wanted to find him. Still, the town decided she was lying. It was easier that way. One afternoon, Maribel finally stood at the gates of Whitaker Ranch. The wind carried the smell of hay and cattle, and somewhere a horse whinnied. Cole himself came out to meet her. Up close, he looked even more solid, like a man carved from the land itself. Maribel's voice trembled as she told her story. Daniel had gone riding with a man who promised him work. He had never come back. Cole listened, expression unreadable. When she finished, he nodded once and said quietly, "I'll look into it." That was all. No promise. No denial. Nothing. And yet, as Maribel walked away, she felt something strange, like she'd been seen for the first time since her brother disappeared. The town watched that meeting with hungry eyes. Rumors spread faster than wildfire. Some said Maribel was trying to scam the richest rancher in 3 counties. Others said she was crazy, chasing ghosts. Every whisper made her lonelier. Still, she kept searching. Days turned into weeks. Her shoes wore thin, her hands blistered, but her heart refused to give up. At night, she whispered Daniel's name like a prayer. And all the while, Cole Whitaker rode the far edges of his land, checking old sheds, dry riverbeds, and forgotten trails, saying nothing to anyone about what he was doing. One evening, a storm rolled in, dark and heavy. Maribel was caught outside, miles from town, when the rain began to fall like a curtain of needles. By the time she reached an abandoned barn for shelter, she was soaked and shaking. Inside, she found old footprints in the mud and a torn piece of Daniel's jacket caught on a nail. Her heart leapt, and broke at the same time. Before she could leave to tell someone, the barn door creaked open. Cole Whitaker stepped inside, rain dripping from his hat. He saw the fabric in her hand and closed his eyes for a long moment. "You were right," he said quietly. What Cole told her then changed everything. Years ago, his own son had gone missing on that same stretch of land. The town had searched, prayed, and then eventually moved on. Cole never had. He had kept silent about it because the truth, that his boy had followed a hired hand who turned out to be dangerous, was too painful to speak aloud. When Daniel disappeared, Cole recognized the pattern immediately. He had tracked the same man to a ravine beyond his ranch. That's where they found the remains of both boys. The news hit Cottonwood Ridge like a thunderclap. The town that had called Maribel a liar now bowed its head in shame. But the greatest shock was still to come. Cole turned himself in, not because he had hurt anyone, but because he had known for weeks where the man who took the boys was hiding and had chosen to deal with it alone. In doing so, he had delayed justice. I was trying to protect everyone from more pain, he said, standing before the sheriff. But I was really just running from my own. The cost was his freedom, his ranch, and the quiet life he had built. Maribel visited Cole in the small county jail before he was taken away. You didn't have to do this, she whispered. Cole looked at her with tired eyes. Sometimes the truth costs everything, he replied, but it also gives everything back. With his confession, the town finally understood the depth of his sacrifice. They rallied around Maribel, raising money to help her start a new life, and around Cole's land, ensuring it stayed in good hands until he could return. Years later, Cottonwood Ridge would remember that season as the one that changed them. They learned that silence can hide both guilt and grace, and that kindness often comes from the quietest hearts. Maribel never forgot the rancher who believed her when no one else did. And though the truth had taken much from Cole Whitaker, it had also planted something new in the town, a deeper compassion, a stronger sense of humanity. Because sometimes, when one person dares to stand by the truth, even when it costs everything, the world becomes a little kinder for everyone else.